Welcome to episode 72 of Ring Talk with myself, Martin Theobald, and with Steve Goodwin, back from Turkey.
Yeah, all back after our awards dinner, or awards party.
That's great fun. Let's recount who won some stuff. Let's.
Okay, so the box of the year.
Yep.
Wadi Camacho was runner-up, and Brad Pauls won it.
Which is a great achievement for Brad.
Yeah. So I think it was a devastating performance for him when he beat Cardona. So he won that. Outstanding contribution to boxing was won by the whip, David Evans.
Rightly so.
Yeah, I think he does a lot behind the scenes. He's great.
He does.
5 fights and under. Best prospect, Florian Marku.
Yep.
Fair, you couldn't argue with that.
That was Josh Burnham came and accepted it on his behalf, didn't he?
10 fights of under. Yusuf Kamari.
Yep.
Fair, you can't. I mean, these are all voted by all the people. And trainer of the year, Terry Stewart.
Yep.
You can't say.
Rightly so. He brought through Sean Robinson, Linus, Brad. He's done a brilliant job.
Yeah. So I think they're all. They're all voted by all the boxers and the trainers and people that come to watch the show, so it was great.
I was chatting with Mr. Stewart. I was a few beers deep at this point, so I'm a bit hazy on the memory. But he was saying about us going down there to his gym and doing, when he's got them all back in camp, going and recording down there one week.
Yeah, it'd be good.
If you're up for that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so Terry will take you up on it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but going down and actually spend some time just watching them and speaking with Tex. Terry's very reclusive. He doesn't do interviews.
It'd be quite good to do an episode down there, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
great.
So all right, we'll arrange that down in Loughton.
Let's do it. So that was good. So
it was a brilliant night, wasn't it? It was
quite good.
Just good fun.
I said to you earlier, I was going really well and everything was all going very well, and then the wheels fell off right at the end.
Yeah, by about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, sort of. And it was good though. I enjoyed the entertainment. Was good. I thought
brilliant. All of it. Yeah.
The awards were concise enough, so I thought it was
concise, not too formal. Got to spend a lot of time with a lot of different boxers.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, it was good fun.
It was all good. But yeah, Turkey was great 2 weeks, but now we're still arranging a couple of fights while I was out there, but we're back to normal now.
So you're in full flow now because you've got September packed up.
We've got 3 shows. And we're helping out with Ultimate Boxer as well. Yeah. And we've been just doing some fights and negotiating some title fights, one of which was approved last week, which is Dean Richardson will now fight Nathan Graham for the vacant Southern Area Super-Welterweight title.
So that's a fight you've been trying to make for a while, isn't it?
Well, we made it as a final eliminator, but Nathan's wife was ill, so he had to pull out. But, so now he's fully ready to go. And to be honest, it's worked out well because both of these lads would have been fighting in the final eliminator and they do the same fight for the actual title. So it's actually worked out better for them, I think.
Yeah. That's a massive opportunity for Dino as well, isn't it? It's a first step for him. I think he's got many steps to go after that. But he's had a few fights now with Gary Logan, started to kind of bed into his way of working. But, he's done fantastically with the State of Mind gym. But he's now got his new trainer and a great opportunity.
And, and it's as you say, it's the first step for him, and good luck to him. Let's hope he can produce because we've built him correctly, and it's now time for him to shine.
And which date is that going on?
28th of September.
Yeah.
So the last one in September, which is great for him. Elsewhere, Ultimate Boxer, we have Lewis Cyret in there, and Sean Robinson's late addition to that.
So is Sean keeping hold of his Southern Area title?
No, he's relinquished it.
Oh, okay. Right, so that's the one that Dean's fighting for.
Yeah.
Yes. That makes sense.
Sean's relinquished, and Dean was mandatory for the title. So Dean's got that. So it's great for him. And on the undercard at the O2 Indigo, live on BT Sport is Mr. Albania, Florian Marku.
Yeah, so he's going to be the gap filler, if you like, although it's not a gap filler, it's a legitimate fight in itself between the last of the semi-finals and the final. He'll be on peak time.
Yeah, but he's taken a massive step up in class, He's taking on a guy that's 11-2, who decked Paul Hyland before losing a contentious point decision to Hyland, who was 19-1 at the time.
Yeah.
and he's won the Czech title and the UBO international title. He's a legitimate decent foreign fighter. And Florian just wants the good opponent. So you're going to see Florian massively up in class.
Because he's only had 4 fights, hasn't he? He stopped all of them.
Yeah, he started boxing 10 months ago. He didn't box until 10 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, he was a decent MMA fighter prior to that, but boxing 10 months in.
And now he's just going at he's now taking on a really credible fighter.
Yeah.
Because if you put Florian Marku against Paul Hyland, people would say, oh, you're putting him in too deep. But this kid gave Paul Hyland all the trouble in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a great fight, and it's going to be live on BT Sports. So people are going to be able to at home watch
get to see Florian.
and see what he's made of.
Yeah.
All we say is don't blink, because it's going to. Because the other kid's got loads of stoppages as well. Hits hard.
Yeah.
So it's going to be it's going to be a really exciting fight.
I wouldn't even blink at the weigh-in, because Florian's such a feisty bloke when it gets to that point, isn't he?
He's ready to go.
He's brilliant.
I think they all get a bit. I actually think that most of his opponents get intimidated. Because Tommy Broadbent, he was doing all that running, but he didn't want to fight him, did he?
No.
And didn't want to stand and trade, and I think others can fold. This guy's got a lot of experience, so I don't imagine that's going to happen. He's been over to Ireland to fight Ireland, but it's going to be a really, really exciting fight. I'm really looking forward to that. But it's opportunities for our fighters as we're developing them through. Florian wants to be fast-tracked, he doesn't want to mess about, and for Lewis Siret, he's 6-0, wants to have a go. It's a really good competition. The Ultimate Boxer's very high quality, some really good fighters in it.
Yeah.
Sean is he's probably ideally suited to longer fights than 3 rounds, but he wanted to have a go. So
you've said before that you don't think Ultimate Boxer's suited to those that have boxed over championship rounds.
Correct.
Which Sean has. So
Correct.
do you have reservations about allowing him to do it?
He wants to do it, but do I think that he's at a disadvantage to others? I think he's massively. You've got Stephen Donnelly in there, who is an Olympian, and he's only still doing the 3 rounds. So, he's still doing the 4 rounds. So he's really the ideal candidate. You've got in there Josh Ejikpovi, who Sean fought, who's done 10 rounds. I tend to go through those competitions normally, relevant to my fighters on, and eliminate the ones that have done 10 rounds. Sometimes it can be wrong, but as a general rule, if you do it on average, you go back over every prize fight Ultimate Boxer, rule out the ones that have done 10 rounds. There are examples where they win it, right? But generally.
Yeah. So it's a big arse then for Sean.
I think so. But he's really talented and a really tough kid, so I'm hoping he can pull it off.
And am I right in saying he's the only one in there who's actually won a pro title?
Yeah.
So on paper he's got all the credentials, but does it
Over
transfer?
10 rounds, it's not the same thing.
Yeah. Does it transfer to 3 rounds? So what date's that on?
On the 20th of September, and then on the 21st, we're off to your call.
So you've got dates on the 7th, the 21st, the 28th.
And Ultimate Box on the 20th. It's going to be a busy September, and I'm flying to France for 4 days for a wedding in between it all.
Oh. Was that on the 14th weekend? Yeah. Good luck.
Great.
So there are loads of other fights that are in the mix at the moment. The border meeting
tomorrow,
which will be Wednesday,
and then there should be some notices out on Thursday.
Yeah. So some fallout that we can discuss next week for your
I can't
lads.
discuss it until the board have done their things and a couple of other things. So there should be a lot more information next week.
And there's one fight in there that's a blinder.
Yeah. Is that the first one we spoke about?
Yeah. Providing that all gets signed off, and if that's okay.
I think that's an amazing fight.
That's a blinder. So we'll see.
So it's great. So it's exciting. Going to be exciting. As we said, the shows we're involved with are getting bigger. They're getting the fights are getting competitive, 50-50s, and the shows are actually just much. I'm sitting there looking forward to seeing a lot of these fights now.
So we're going to do a full preview of September 7th next week.
Yeah.
When we do it. But just to let people know, the main headline fights on it: Ramez Mahmood, Jack Budge
for the Southern Area featherweight title.
Yeah. K Prosper, Sam Mason,
English super lightweight title,
and Dion Juma, Wadi Camacho,
cruiserweight English title.
They're 3 cracking fights.
Really good fights.
Like 2 English title fights and the Southern Area on the one show.
Great, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's not to take anything away from the ones on the 21st and the 28th, because they've got their own quality fights on, but that 7th one is going to be good.
I think 21st is great as well, and I think 28th is great.
Yeah.
I mean, 28th, Adrian Martin, Alex McCloy, English Eliminator, for example. That's an absolutely unbelievable fight.
Yeah, I see Adrian's busy.
Mahib Fazaldon, Josh Kennedy.
Yeah, there's some great fights on it. And they're both eliminators, isn't they?
One's a final.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, it's going to be
Because
good.
Michael Rambalatz is fighting Jack Bateson for the
I saw that.
for the English title, for his defending his title. So the winner will be mandatory for whoever wins that when they're due to defend.
Are you still working with Michael?
No, I basically, what happened with Michael, there was no fallout. It's very difficult for me to deal with somebody in Preston, right? Because I could do, there was a certain thing I can do if they're not in my area. I can't put shows on in Preston. He can't sell a ticket. He struggles to sell a ticket in Preston. He can't sell one in London.
Yeah.
So I got him to where he's got, but I couldn't do anything with him. If I'm in London, I can do everything. But up in Preston, I can't. So I said to Michael, honestly, I said, you're better off getting somebody who can get you a warm-up fight up there and get you a defence. So that was what they did.
Yeah. You've got Jack Bateson. It's a hard fight, that, isn't it? But
yeah,
Michael likes taking out these young kids.
he has to take the fights. He has to take the fights that he's given.
Yeah.
You can't plan a career. I mean, I thought I planned his career very well, bearing in mind that I'm dealing with a non-ticket seller. Nobody could have done a better job for Michael than I did, and I think he'd say the same. But now, what can you do? He's just going to be fed to whoever's going to pay him.
Yeah.
And then hope he causes out a big upset.
Yeah. Are there any new signings that you got in the meantime?
A few have been going on. I've got 2 or 3 new ones that we're just going through with, but one was signed while I was away, a couple before. I've got a new one signed on Thursday. But no, they're still growing. We're still signing and signing and signing. Some people are retiring. David Abraham announced his retirement as a heavyweight. Right decision.
Yeah.
And so a couple of others have decided to stop boxing, but yeah, we're still signing. We're building up a really good team. I'm looking forward to building fighters. I think next year we're going to have a few fighters fighting for British titles. So we're going to be moving up those levels now, and we're going to have a lot more people fighting for the English, as you can see, and there's going to be more fighting for the British. So it's going to be quite an exciting next 12 months. So I think the fighters will be rising up levels now.
Awesome. And then you've got the new ones coming through the door as well, like young Donald Bailey. I've messaged his
Bailey
coach.
Donald.
Oh, sorry, Bailey Donald.
Yeah.
Don't have 2 first names.
But yeah, I mean, we've got some really, really talented kids coming through at the bottom. But you see, they take time before we build them through. So you need to have the ones now that are between 5 and 8 fights, then the ones that are at 10 to 12 fights. So you want the whole thing to travel through, and they just replace as they move on.
Yeah, as you harvest the top end of it.
The Linuses, the Brads, the Nick Parp, the Mark Little, who's now at 13, the people, the Dion Jumas, the people there that are coming through at the higher level.
Yeah.
Curtis Felix now come through the English title, and others that I've probably missed, but these are just instant ones that I'm thinking of. So you've got quite a lot of those. The Sean Robinson, they're coming through now, Dean Richardson's, and then you've got the ones coming through at the area level and the ones that are just building up behind. So you just need replenishment of each level, and then we can develop them through. But what I want now is, I think we've got enough talent to now move to British and Commonwealths and things like that.
Yeah, so you keep that supply chain rolling. Excellent. Right, we're going to hit on the Q&A.
Okay.
Unless Trevor's been doing anything that...
I've not spoken to Trevor for a bit. Actually, I did speak to him about one thing. I didn't know if I told. He went. He actually. This isn't actually directly to do with Trevor, but I was telling him about this before I went on holiday. There was a show up north in England, a boxing show, and they had at the entrance to the boxing show somebody dressed as Fred Flintstone with one of those things going yabba dabba.
Right.
And I saw that somebody said this to me. They said, "Oh, this guy was running round going yabba dabba doing the boxing entrance." And I rang Trevor up and said, "Trevor, was this your idea?" And he said, "No, I was not responsible for that one."
So many questions around that.
What's that, Trevor?
Why is someone dressed as Fred Flintstone? Was it part of the show, or was that somebody who's bought a ticket and...
No, it was part of the show. It was all part of they had somebody else do something else. It was part of the entertainment as people went into the arena. Right. I found it a bit strange.
I find that very strange.
But anyway, that's what happened.
Right, let's go on to the questions.
Anyway.
Joe at Ealing1889 on Twitter. Will we see the return of ring girls on your shows? I think you explained before about the general cost of ring girls versus the benefit of the screen.
Why do you have ring girls? You have ring girls so you hold up which round it is, right? And other people do it because they like to look at half-naked women dressed up. Now,
that's very true.
From our point of view, you have one of two things, but my thing is, it's there to show the rounds. We got screens there that we spend money on, and that shows the rounds. So what's the point of the ring girl when behind them you've got the round number on the board the whole time?
Yeah.
So people, and it's more effective in ring girls because you can see the round the whole time. So we just felt the value that it adds compared to what else we're spending our money on. You can't spend it on everything. We felt that was something that we could let go.
They can all get re-employed in Saudi Arabia, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How often are the boxers on small hall circuit drug tested from your experience with your fighters on your show? From Brian Potter on Twitter.
Probably in 10 years, apart from when we've had Commonwealth titles, I would say 3 times.
That's mad, isn't it? How many shows roughly?
70, 90 shows, probably 3 times.
That's absolutely mad. And then there was the one lad who got tested outside, like UCAD randomly turned up.
I had one that got, UCAD turned up in the first thing in the morning. They did test him, but that's the only boxer I've had in 10 years that's been randomly tested.
Absolutely mad. I'm not saying that it's such a difficult one. You know, they've only got a limited budget. They can't do every sporting activity that's going on around the UK. They can't track every athlete in the UK, but to have one in all that time. Crazy. Sean Rye on Twitter. With the emergence of another tournament format on the way in the shape of MTK's Golden Contract, do you think that is going to become more and more prevalent in boxing, almost like cup competitions in football? It's a good question.
I think it's everything that changes it up is better for the sport. I think we're yet to see how it works out because we've had. Remember we had the Super 6 in America when Carl Fox was
the Andre Ward.
That fell apart. You've seen the WBSS to a certain extent hasn't lived up to its early promise. You had the Mick Hennessy competition on Channel 5 that fell apart.
I forgot about that.
So these tournaments do have a tendency to fall apart. The only difference is here, probably that MTK fighters are pretty much exclusively fighting, so they're not going to be threatening to pull off shows and cause damage. So I think that may help, but I think we've got to see how it pans out. But anything like this is good for the sport.
I think it's a great format, and I like the little twist they've done where you don't find out an opponent until the week before your fight. I think that's great.
Totally agree.
I think anything that creates opportunities for lads that will eventually give the winner a big contract with a big promoter.
As long as at the end of the day the competition lasts. The fighters get well paid, and at the end of the day, it all happens as it says.
Yeah.
And because we've had this in, and before, this is not an instant thing because I think it looks really good, but sometimes in the past where things have been done like this with other people, it's not actually fulfilled.
You need to keep it flowing. You need to keep it moving, and
I think we'll see in a year's time with how good it is. But I think it's a really good concept and a really good idea.
Excellent. Heavens Above on Twitter. I appreciate that managers and promoters have a job to do in earning a wage, but is there anything you wouldn't do to put on a fight, even if the commercials were way beyond your wildest dreams? I'm of course referring to the AJ Ruiz fight being staged in Saudi.
Do you know what's difficult about this? I was thinking about this when it was staged. This isn't really a sporting thing, this is a worldwide thing. When Jamal Khashoggi got murdered in Turkey, even the leaders around the world just wanted to paper over the fact that this man was killed in an embassy.
In a Saudi embassy.
And was chopped up, right? In the Saudi embassy, chopped up. And the evidence was that it went back to the top people in Saudi Arabia. So even that is washed. So how can you expect boxing people who are notoriously greedy, right, to have any principles when you haven't even got the world's leaders having any principles? For me personally, I'm very principled, but what do you do? The problem is this is just the way of the world, the way of people, the way of life.
It's a difficult one. Like, I don't think as sports fans, I don't think we should be nobody kicked off at Amir Khan for doing it. So I do think there's an element of people are just justifying having a go at Hearn and having a go at Joshua, which I do quite often anyway, so fuck it. Like, I'm not in a great position to criticise, but it does feel a little bit like people want to take take aim at that.
The issue with it is, should it be happening there? Human rights, but should things be happening in lots? I think we're verging on political stuff here, and for me, the question is, would I do things? Me personally, if I had a decision, I wouldn't do lots of things that other people do. And there's lots of things outside what you're talking about here in the sport of boxing, which people can look at and go, Jesus Christ, that's wrong here. This isn't how it should be.
There are lots of unspoken things that go on in boxing that people,
and there are more,
that people talk about away from cameras and microphones that go on that people would be fucking horrified about.
Yeah,
and you're not really allowed to talk about them.
Correct.
Whatever you want to read into that, fine. So this isn't the worst. This isn't the worst thing that goes on in boxing. And there's a part of me that thinks, look, if Joshua and Ruiz can take home 5 million extra each for doing it.
I mean, I'm never going to say on here, but there's worse things in boxing that go on than that.
Yeah, I agree.
And there is. And I was saying about the Khashoggi thing, that's worse than that, and that was outside boxing. But there are much worse things that go on in boxing than what's going on in Saudi Arabia. And people don't, and it's nothing I will ever answer questions on, but there are. Much worse.
If someone came, like, everyone's got a limit to an extent as well as to how far their principles will stretch. If you said your average show, and I don't know that, I'm just making up a number, but arbitrarily, if you said your average show you could earn £10,000 profit on, if someone came to you and said, I want to stage your show but in Saudi Arabia, and I'll guarantee you go home with £1 million profit out of it, you're probably going to go, yeah, all right, let's talk. Like, whether it ends up happening or not is potentially the devil's in the detail.
The problem you've then got is it's the boxers that are losing out.
Yeah.
And the boxers might want to do it. So it's a real problem. So what I'm saying is it's not just Eddie Hearn, because he's working for Joshua. Joshua wants the big money. You can't apportion blame. What I'm saying is that there are worse things in the world that go on apart from a boxing event being staged somewhere. And there are a lot of worse things happening in boxing than that. That's it.
End of. No, I'd agree entirely. In reference to the AJ bout in Saudi, as a man that no doubt represents and encourages female boxers, how would you be able to look them in the eye if you actively sought to put on a show in a country with such a horrific record in women's rights?
We're back on the politics again, aren't we?
Yeah.
You can't.
And I actually feel for her out of all this, because if I had to take a punt, and this isn't based on anything educated, but just gut feeling, he probably doesn't want to do this. He probably would rather have it Cardiff at Wembley.
I'm sure this is not what he wants to do.
When you saw him at that press conference yesterday with whoever it was, that geezer from the Saudi Arabian travel agency, and they were playing a video of how great Saudi Arabia is, I don't think Hearn looked comfortable in that entire scenario or the interviews afterwards. And I just thought, this is a man that looks like he's out of his depth a little bit here. And for him, he's an old window salesman from Brentwood. The old man happens to have loads of money and he happens to be a fantastic salesman. He's a bullshitter, but he's a fantastic salesman amongst all of it. For him to have to justify political, gender rights, all this stuff, I kind of think he probably doesn't want any of that, but he's got to sign the paperwork.
Because Joshua calls the shots.
You'd suspect so, yeah.
I think so.
Heavens above again. On the subject of women's boxing, how many do you have on your books and represent?
4.
Which are?
Sam Smith, former Commonwealth and European title challenger. Anel Massey, who is looking to get off the mark in September. Rebecca McMillan down in Devon, super flyweight. And Sangeeta Birdie, who signed with us recently and makes her debut in November.
And Sangeeta was there at the awards too, yeah?
Nice to see her.
Yeah. So the Lady Rebecca,
yes.
When's she fighting? Is she?
November in our show in Plymouth.
Okay.
We're going to be announcing in the next week or so.
Right, and Anel is September.
September.
Excellent. So she's still looking for that first win because she's in that awkward position of two fights now.
I think she gets it this time. She's had 2 fights that you wouldn't normally have taken. But
No.
She got left with fights outside her weight category because there were so few opponents, and to be honest, I felt sorry for her. But this time she has to win.
Yeah.
She's got the right opponent in the right weight category, and she has to win this time.
She's got a good opportunity to go out and make that statement. Heavens Above on Twitter, you went on a little rant a few weeks back regarding the conditions at your call. Rated as one of the finest boxing venues in the world, is there a time when it's just no longer fit for purpose? Surely bare minimum showers should work for boxers.
I don't think it's been fit for purpose for 10 years.
I agree. There's a brilliant article by Steve Bunce that's on the Guardian website that we've probably written about 10 years ago, saying that it's a great venue and it has all the ghosts of the past that live there, but it's a shithole. And that was like 10 years ago.
But it's great to watch boxing.
Yeah. I suppose the question would be, when does it reach a point that it's no longer viable to put boxing
Well, when in the big heat of July, the heating was on, they couldn't turn the heating off in the venue. That's pretty bad.
That is. Would that stop you putting shows on there?
You haven't got an alternative.
So you tried Tottenham.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, there is nothing in London. I went to Costas's, who did a show at Pickett's Lock. It was just not a suitable venue. They're being able to do this because there isn't another venue.
So your hands are tied as to, it's either that or nothing.
Pretty much in that area. Because the other, Trox is terrible for boxing. Just a terrible, terrible place for boxing. And then you go to places like Copper Box and the pricing is so far out of reach.
Yeah.
So, that's the problem.
There's a question about something to do with that later. From Alan Curtis on Twitter. How long does Steve think it will be before Yusuf Kamari will be ready for area and English titles? I think he's one of the best prospects I've seen in a long time.
Let's discuss this next week.
We'll discuss that next week. No comment, Alan.
Alan, watch this space.
Maybe read some board notices when they come out. You might. Hopefully his name will be in there. Quite where? Find out when they come out. Michael Gillette on Twitter. Would Steve have let Billy Joe go so seemingly easily to Matchroom if he was in Frank Warren's spot?
Right. I can't really answer this because
no one knows the scenario, do they? Nobody knows the
you can surmise
detail, but times have changed. If you look at how fighters left Frank Warren to go to Matchroom 6, 7, 8 years ago, and you look through the legal ramifications of people doing so, those legal ramifications have disappeared over time.
So again, we're not privy to whether he was out of contract, in contract, what the issues were. It's really difficult for me to say anything. What I would say is Frank Warren done a phenomenal job with him.
Yes.
As a promoter, with full Billy Joe Saunders ups and downs, Frank Warren done an absolutely phenomenal job from the outside. So that's the one thing I could say. And I was quite surprised that he left. But he's obviously he feels there's more options with the DAZN platform, I guess. But I thought Frank Warren did a great job. And I think sometimes you don't have a choice when a boxer, we're in that situation. Frank may have just thought, I've got no choice here. He's free to go. That's how it is.
Yeah, there's a little bit that feels like it's the right time for everyone in it.
Yeah,
Billy had a phenomenal run at middleweight, but never got the big fights that he craved. This super middleweight, the run out at Kettering, or wherever it was, Stevenage, Kettering, I don't know where that came from. It just feels like it's run its course a little bit, and it needs a refresh.
That'd be fair. And sometimes things do that, but he's done a great job with him. But the question was, if I was Frank, would I let him go so easily? You'd have to ask Frank that, and if Frank would want to discuss his decisions for him going, rather than the political correctness that you see, that we're all still friends and it's all great and we're all, blah, blah, blah.
Agreed. Oliver McManus, what's been the worst venue you've watched or promoted boxing in?
Oh, it's been some. The worst venue I've watched, I'd probably say, and this is no disrespect to the promoter, because the promoter's a good man, I'd say it was Pickett's Lock Centre.
Was that the Costas one?
Yeah. Costa's a great man. Great for boxing, but the venue does not work.
What is the venue?
It's an athletics indoor track. And they basically put the ring at one end of the track, in the middle.
What, a 400 metre track?
Yeah. Or, is it 400? Well, it might be 300, but whatever it is, it might even be 200 metre track. But you got half of the track in darkness.
Okay.
The ring's plonked at the other end with a few ringside round there. There's a bar behind the track where people are standing at the bar. It's just devoid of all atmosphere.
That sounds mad.
That's what it is. It just didn't work for me. So that would be the worst venue. But there's been some venue. We did Tottenham. That didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was. We were forced upon it, but it just didn't work. You
were forced upon it, and if it had worked well, then it was always going to be an alternative.
But I didn't think it was an alternative. So, but that was not very good. But it was better than the Pickett's Lock Centre. That was my honest view, and there's no disrespect to Costas, who is really doing his best as a promoter. So they would be the two. They would be the two, I'd say.
In a slightly different way of wording it, what's the worst experience on the night when nothing has seemed to go right?
I've had loads of them.
He hasn't necessarily said that's about your show either. Could be anyone's.
The worst experience ever was Yusuf Kamari not fighting at the correct time on Ultimate Boxer. And I don't want to say any more about that.
And that's not even about the night necessarily. That's just
the whole
fallout.
The whole experience through the night of having to deal with a situation with Yusuf Kamari was horrific. That was the worst.
Pulling the Punch on Twitter. Have you considered putting on a big event at the Copper Box? If you had your top ticket sellers, Marku, Little, Linus, etc., all on one card, do you think you could sell it out?
Possibly without TV revenue. The cost of putting on a show at the Copper Box. I think I'm doing this from thing. If you imagine that a show without all the extras, just putting the seating in at York Hall is like $4,000.
Yep.
The Copper Box was 40 grand. Right?
Which I suppose, how big's the Copper Box?
8,000.
Yeah, so it's scaling up the cost essentially. It doesn't really quite work, but
it doesn't quite work. So again, it's very difficult to make that pay. If you could put all the ticket sellers in the world on there, but they'll be like Florian would be better off selling his own show at York Hall. He'll earn much more money if he's having to cover the cost of trying to cover those sort of costs.
Yeah,
they only work for when TV are paying the costs.
Yeah, because you looked at the Olympia as well, didn't you?
That was even worse.
Yeah.
It was a Wembley Arena.
It was the chair cost of the Olympia that was
25,000 just bring chairs.
Get on fucking eBay.
Seriously, 25,000 bring chairs in. It's just ridiculous. So that's why only TV shows go there.
Yeah.
You need TV money and revenue to go into these big arenas. It's not possible.
It's good the Frank's going back to the Royal Albert Hall.
Yes, no, I love the Royal. That's probably my favourite venue for boxing.
Yeah.
Royal Albert Hall. I love the Royal Albert Hall.
What about the American ones you've been to? Did it top them?
Yeah, I didn't like the American ones. I went and saw Lewis Holyfield. I think it was at top at Thomas and Mack Centre in Vegas. I went to Dallas to watch the Commie fight in January. But I just think the Albert Hall's got everything.
What was the Klitschko-Jennings fight?
I was in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, I went there. See, I didn't mention that. It was alright.
Madison Square Garden's alright.
It was alright. It was just like...
Not better than the Royal Albert Hall.
It was just... No, because the atmosphere wasn't as good as the O2, for example. The atmosphere... You don't get the same atmosphere in America.
Yeah. No Sweet Caroline.
No Sweet Caroline. Well, have they got it yet? They started
I don't know. They'll have it in Saudi Arabia soon, though.
Yeah.
Final question, my friend Riku.
He's a good man, Riku.
He is. He's a very good man. Writes some very good articles for Boxing Social. Check him out. Find him somewhere. But yeah, just a decent bloke. whether you can answer this question or not, I suspect we're going to struggle, but we'll go through it anyway. In a standard rematch clause, is it the case that all the power lies with the champion's camp and the challenger, in the event of a rematch, needs to oblige with all the terms having signed the initial contract?
Well, I think I would imagine if you looked at every different rematch clause, they'd be written by different lawyers.
Yep.
So a rematch clause will be as good or as bad as the lawyer who's designed it, and as tight or as untight as the lawyer who designs it. So it's very hard to be blunt. You could have a rematch clause which says you're going to fight at this venue on this date for this money, and the penalties are going to be this. You could have a rematch clause that says you're going to fight within 12 months, and we'll mutually agree the venue, and we'll mutually agree this, and the purse will be negotiated on what happens in the first fight, and because you can get somewhere there's 3 fights. So a standard rematch clause there is no such thing, because a different lawyer will draft it up.
I said this before discussing the Joshua Ruiz stuff, in that a contract is great on paper, but it's only when it has to be used and played out. A rematch clause, Joshua's never needed one before. He'd have had them, but he'd never had to actually activate it. And so as much as it can be on paper and written down, you don't know how watertight that is until it's tested by the other side.
And then they go to court, and then the judge will then rule where he goes. So a rematch clause doesn't make, as you rightfully say, how many times have rematch clauses been tested through the courts?
It says, what I'm really getting at is that it can be the case that as Ruiz signed the initial contract, he has no say about anything in the rematch, despite being the champion and no negotiation power.
But just
Would you
that
believe that's the case?
But Regis Podgrace has signed signed for the and thinks he can walk out of a contract that he's legally signed and has been tight for. So it just shows you can try and walk away from any contract. The problem with Ruiz, Eddie Hearn kept saying, "You know me, Coogan. I've got it all watertight. I know my stuff." You know, basically that was his standard answer, wasn't it? We'll soon find out.
Yeah.
But Ruiz said he wasn't going to come to England, right? And then the fight was moved out of England.
Yeah.
So that tells you that they didn't feel that confident of doing it in England. Because what Ruiz could probably allege is following the Dylan White thing. He could possibly allege in some form of contract that there's no duty of care there. I can come out on the duty of care clause or whatever it may be. So it's only as watertight as what's written. So I imagine that the reason it's not in the UK, maybe for money, but primarily I believe it's probably because they might have thought that Ruiz could get out of it.
Yeah. If it was as watertight as we were told initially, then Ruiz would be in the UK.
I think so.
I 100% believe that, because
I think Eddie wants it in the UK.
Yeah, I'd imagine Joshua probably wants all the home advantages that he can stag. And the fact that it's not there and it's in Saudi Arabia implies they've just done something to try and reach an agreement rather than, bicker over the finer details of a contract. If the contract was watertight, you wouldn't have anything to bicker over.
Has Ruiz come out yet and said No! He's still not come out and said anything about it?
No, he said nothing.
So it tells you that one.
And if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast from about 3 weeks ago, he was saying it's in Cardiff. He said it's in Cardiff.
Who said that?
Andy Ruiz.
Oh, did he?
Said it on the Joe Rogan podcast.
But that was before the Dylan White fight.
Possibly, can't remember. But it was certainly before the Saudi Arabia announcement. But he basically said it's in Cardiff. So something's changed along the way. But
it may just be the money offer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's really hard to answer because you're not privy to what's been going on.
No.
And you don't want to be subjective because otherwise you were just talking bullshit, aren't we?
Yeah, agreed. Right, cool. That's it. Thank you very much. Subscribe. Send me your sponsors if you're a boxer out there, if you're a trainer out there that's working with people, send them over and we can give them a mention. But make sure you hit subscribe. I don't know how many YouTube subscribers you have now, but over 1,000.
Over 1,000 now.
But keep them growing anyway.
Started monetising now, so.
And a mention for my son's class again, because they're all on there, and my stepdaughter's class, who also
subscribe. So it's great.
So yeah, shout out to Leo and Oscar for boosting the numbers.
Exactly. That's all we needed. So back next week, we'll talk about lots of exciting news, I think.
Yeah, so we'll have board notices, new signings potentially, preview the show in September, the first show of September, the 7th.
And there'll be some fights to announce for November as well, with any luck.
Yeah, cool. All right, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheers, thanks a lot.